Okay, I think we're on. Hello, everybody. Hello, Enolia.
Hello, Stefania, and hello, everybody, wherever you are in the world. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. So
Yes,
happy to be here.
it is exciting to be here. This is episode 3 of Relationship Talk with Enolia and Stefania from the Gentleman's Square. And we're so excited to be here, aren't we, Enolia?
Yes, we are, especially during this special week in which we call it that particular holiday for those who are familiar with it. And for those who are not, it is Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And that is a day where we recognize love. We
Yeah.
recognize, pause, and acknowledge love.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to be looking at different perspectives, I think, of love. And we thought we'd title this episode, What is the Meaning of Love?
Yes. And what is love to you?
Yes, exactly. Because everybody has a different perspective of love, right? Everybody views love, everybody feels love in different ways. We express love in different ways. So we're just going to have a, fairly open conversation, organic conversation, as we do in Olia about love. And I'm going to hand it over to you to start off with, if that's okay.
So that's fine. I would love to start it off with, what does love mean to you? And I'm going to define love and what it means to me. To me, love is a vibration. Love is multidimensional. Love comes at many different levels of connection. The love of knowledge, the love of relationship, the love of a parent and a child, the love of what you do and how you assist people, the love of leadership. So, the love of self, let's not forget that.
Absolutely.
So, when we talk about love, we are talking about such a broad perspective in how it is engaged and how it is viewed and how it is looked at and how it is connected to, that you really should step back and see what the meaning of love means for you. So, with me engaging that, I'd like to ask you, Stefania, what does love mean to you? How do you define love?
Okay. Well, love to me is an experience. It's an experience that we feel in the moment. And I think, everything that you said, absolutely. And I just want to add this a little bit to it. It's what
Yes.
we feel in the very present moment. And we can feel love in many ways, and we can express love in many ways. We can feel love in many ways as well. So I think a lot has got to do with our upbringing. It has a lot to do with our culture. And of course, we always tap into, the cultural, aspect of love, relationships, or whatever we're talking about. And I think, what mustn't be, overlooked is how we interpret love as well. And
Mm,
we can certainly interpret, love in many different ways. And, you know, I think with the cultural aspect, um, we can feel loved if we're looked after, if we're cared for, if we're, gifts are being bought for us. And then in other cultures, it's more, what that other person can do for us. So it can be conditional. And that's where sometimes we can get a little confused about what love really is. And we must be really aware of that and not be, have that condition based love, because we can certainly get lost in that whole thing, that whole energy of what love is and our interpretation of it.
yeah. So I'd like to take this in stages because you said a lot there, and each one of those aspects of love can be broken out and fully discussed. So let's take it in sections. So let's talk about love as a non-condition. Love as a non-condition, but a belief system. And when I say it like that, when we talk about it from a belief system, we are raised to believe that love has to look a certain way. And that ties a little bit into your cultural aspects of it. So love may look like to you that when you say that you love someone, you have a roof over their head, you give them food in their mouths, you give them clothes on their back, and that is defining your love. But what that love is absent of is affection, communication, engagement, and dynamic of the relationship. It's absent of the cultivation of children because you're not cultivating children under the auspices of love. You're cultivating children under the auspices of responsibility.
Mm.
That love is responsibility, and that if you fulfill that responsibility, you are showing that person you love them. But I would claim and state that that's an aspect of love that is not engaged, full love. What are your thoughts? And what would be a male's perspective? And I'm going to caveat that before you say anything is that we're talking culturally here.
Mm.
We're talking culturally
And I,
because that's what I've observed with many traditions.
right, right. And you've got a really good point there, Enolia, because particularly where you're living, you're experiencing that quite a lot there in
Yes,
Africa,
I am.
for sure. And I also experienced that a lot when I was in Europe as well, where the male, whether it be cultural, whether it's the male figure, he's the hunter, he's the provider for the family. So like you said, as long as I'm providing food on the table, a roof over your head, and I'm caring for you and keeping you in a safe environment, I'm loving you, I'm giving love, I'm that's love to me. But I think it's not that completely. It is part of it, but it's a part of loving. And I think too, where this um, comes into it is the five love languages. Now everybody knows, most people know about the five love languages, particularly Gary Chapman, Dr. Gary Chapman, who has got some amazing books out there. But he even breaks it down in five different sections of love. And I would like to, break it down a little bit further. But going back to your question with males, yes, unfortunately, males just seem to think that they are providers and that they are loving in that way, that that is love, period. And I think with our conversations, we're here to say that that's not what it is in its entirety. It is a portion of it. And when I work with my male clients, this is where I bring in, the female perspective and how she feels love and how she feels love through connection. She feels love through time, quality time spent with her. She feels loved through, listening. And yes, part of it for some is gifts, but it doesn't have to be, the expensive gifts. It can even be a picking of a flower, or making something, even a written card, anything like that is still a gift. And it doesn't have to evolve all around money.
So I'm going to this, and I'm going to digress and tell a story. Okay. I
Okay.
was coming from Calendula Falls in headed to Luanda. And if anyone doesn't know what that means, it's a 6-hour trek. And I was with my fiance, and we were able to catch a cab. And now a cab is a van full of people headed to the same direction for 6 hours. And the cab that we happened to catch was fulfilled with what was filled with 15 men, and I was the only woman. So what do you talk about over 6 hours? And believe it or not, it was one of those moments where we went there. We ended up introducing ourselves to each other, and we ended up getting into a really, really serious discussion. And we actually talked about this. And I want you to hear this from a cultural perspective. we basically talked about, the Angolan men were saying that the women were unappreciative. I put a roof over her head, food in her mouth, and I give her what it takes to be able to have clothes on her back and feed the children and everything else. And this is love. What else could you want? She's ungrateful. And I I asked the question, do you teach her about finances? Is she aware about finances? Understanding that she's stressing you when she asks for more finances and you say no. Well, no, they hadn't. Do you actually communicate with her and talk with her versus just saying yes or no, what she can have and can't have? And the answer was no. And then I just basically asked the question, well, if you took the time to do these things, express finances, express communication of why and what's going on so that she can learn and understand, do you think that you would have the same troubles that you had? And he basically said, no, but he never thought about doing it that way. So we talked about love as a connection. We talked for the first time, and we talked about love as an aspect of fulfillment and showing and engaging in affection, and an aspect of getting along, an aspect of lifting each other up. And this had never dawned or been perceived from a cultural perspective. So when men are asking, why are women unhappy? There is a connection there. So this man corrected me. He said, well, he didn't correct me. He said, so what do you think is the most important aspect or most important thing in an Angolan man's life? And I was like, okay, is it love? Is it God? I'm thinking like that. And he goes, no, it's our children. So my question to him was basically, so if your children are your most important gift, then why wouldn't you want to raise them in a relationship of love, which is fully impacting your precious gift? So when we are talking about men and your vision, and women, when we are talking about wanting more, there's got to be a meeting of the means halfway that shares both aspects, so that you're getting what you want from the relationship. And then men, and you please comment on this, I want you to, how do you open up your vision to give more in that realm? We're not asking about even materialistic things.
No.
We're asking about lifting each other up, communication, sharing of thoughts and ideas, teaching of aspects that may be unknown, that releases your own pressure. Why is it a such thing of control versus communication?
Absolutely. And if I can add to that, Enolia, the openness that love brings, love is being open with one another. Love is the freedom we give each other, the freedom of being ourselves, the freedom of non-judgment. I think when we refrain from judging and even having thoughts of judgment towards each other, then we can love. Because again, once we start judging, we start conditioning, we start controlling, and you've lost the meaning of love. And the last one, obviously you've mentioned before, is connection, having that intimacy. Love is intimacy in connecting, in conversing, in communicating. And if you haven't got those, three things, openness, freedom, and connection with each other, which are, I believe, are the real root foundations in holding that relationship together, you're going to have a difficult time holding that love structure, your love together. That's my thought. I don't know.
And I want to, yeah, no, I think you're right. I want to highlight how intimacy, from a woman's perspective, gentlemen, it is not about sex. Intimacy is about holding close, and the connection of feeling warmth, feeling protected, feeling held, without a condition of sex being the outcome. And if you're able to hold intimacy in that regard, then you will be able to capture your woman's heart. because it's not always about something that has the results in action. It's just being held. That is the action. Being held is the action. I want to make this really, really clear, because this is a complaint from many women, that we don't have intimacy, that we can't be held without an expectation of something in the end. And sometimes we want to be held all night. Sometimes we just want to be held as we go to sleep. Sometimes we just want to be held for a moment of vulnerability. And let's go about love and fighting. You know, every fight that has taken place, if you were to just pause that fight for a moment in mid-sentence of the hiatus of being upset, really all that person really wants to do is to be held in the midst of it, because they're feeling vulnerable and insecure.
Right.
Can you imagine that you would be able to stop fighting and say, you know what, even though we're at odds, no matter how you feel and how I feel, I still love you. And you held each other.
Exactly. And can
I'm highlighting that one too.
Yeah. You're right, Enolia. But can I just make a mention also for the ladies, okay? That men too, you know, because I'm sticking up for my brothers.
Yes,
yes,
that's what you're here for.
Yeah, men too need that moment of support, of being held, yes, but verbally heard and made to feel like you as women are their biggest cheerleaders, because it kind of works both ways. The language that women want, okay, they want to be held and whatever, but the men want to hear it. The men want to feel that support. They want that strong woman to be there beside them. And, you know,
if they do, and and we're going to find our middle ground here, and I'm proposing it. There should be ground rules, and the ground rules basically I would come up with, and now this is me personally, is that there's no belittling, there's no stepping on each other, there's no name calling, and there's no demeaning. And then we would be your biggest cheerleader.
Yes, absolutely.
That if we can stick with those ground rules of basically saying that here's a meeting of the minds halfway, and it's not your fault, but it's not my fault either. And that we are not insecure enough that we are taking stabs at each other. And that we are not making conditions on, well, I'll be your biggest cheerleader if you could, blah, blah, blah. We can own that, you know, but on the same token, we want to be made to feel beautiful too. We don't want to be thought as an afterthought or a second thought as women. Yeah. So if we could find those ground rules, speak our truths, and then just say, okay, we may both disagree. Here's how it is right in the middle. And by the way, it's nobody's fault.
That's right.
It's nobody's problem. You're not belittled because I feel better or empowered. And I'm not belittling you because you feel better and empowered. That we can just meet halfway and walk with each other side by side in our love. In our love.
In our love.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And I accept it from the brothers.
That's right. Which brings us back to, you know, having those what did you call them? Meeting at the middle ground, or having that kind of accountability for each other. And it comes back to, you know, being open, the communication, and giving each other the freedom of being themselves. No belittling, no judgment, no criticism, and no conditioning. Above all, the conditioning factor.
And no stepping on each other like a doormat.
Yes.
You know, because there's that taking for granted also, like, oh, well, you're expected to do this, 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 and this. Be grateful that this is getting done. God forbid that anything happened to someone and it's not there. You've taken it for granted. Every once in a while, say thank you, or I see you.
Yes.
I see you. I see how hard you work.
Yes.
And this is for both men and women. I see how hard you work. I recognize and appreciate all that you do in the relationship. I love and honor the fact that you are with me and by my side, no matter in trials or tribulations or the greatest triumphs. These are important factors as love.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
being celebrated
Yeah.
and seen.
And seen and made, yeah, feel good. What love's about. And if I can just add to that, okay, because I know
Uh-huh.
we spell love as in LOVE, right? But I'm going to abbreviate it and I'm going to do an acronym for love. LUV. If I had a board, I'd write it up. But L, what does L stand for? Listening. The power of listening.
Mm.
And this goes for both males and females here, okay? I'm talking across the board. The power of listening. Really make an effort to listen to your partner. Listen to what they're saying. And if you have got something to say, that means, and you want to say it, that means you're not listening. So hang on to that thought, quieten the mind, and listen to what your partner's saying, and let your partner finish. And a simple question is, have you finished? That's how you're going to know whether your partner's finished. And when they say they're finished, then you can come in and say your bit. But the importance of the L, the listening, is super, super important. Then we have you, okay, and that is for understood, feeling understood. Now, I, as a female, I mean, and I'm sure men feel the same way, we all feel the same way. The most important element in a relationship, one of the most important, is feeling understood. I'm sure you agree with me here, Enolia, but feeling understood is just wow. It makes your heart expand, because how beautiful to have someone say, like, this man understands me, this woman gets me, she understands me, right? So that is so, so important. And the last one, the V, okay, which we get love in the short acronym, is validation. Validate. So important to validate your partner. And by this, what I mean is, after you've listened and you really placed yourself in their shoes and tried to understand them, is you just validate them. I get it. You're right, or I understand, or I've got it. It's validating exactly what they're saying. And it may be a validation where I get it, but I've got something to share with you and I want to add more to that, whatever it is. But validating is reinforcing that you are listening, that you are understanding your partner, and again, you're getting it. So that's what I wanted to put in my 2 cents about love.
Actually, I love it. I actually love it. And to compliment you on that listening, if your partner doesn't listen, in indigenous practices, we use a talking stick. And so if you need a physical object, you put it in one person's hand, and while that person has it, the other one may not speak. They can only listen. And when you give up that talking stick and you hand it to the other person to speak, then the other one does not speak. They have to listen. So if you find that listening is a problem, use the tool. I love what you said. Absolutely, listening is essential. It's primary
Yeah.
in a relationship, in any kind of relationship.
Yeah.
And then I love the understanding, and understanding doesn't necessarily mean agreeing.
No.
It means that you understand and you could place yourself in the other person's shoes and understand their perspective. Two people can see the same thing, and each one of them has a different truth. It doesn't make or negate the other one's truth. It's two different viewpoints, two different belief systems, two different upbringings, two different cultures, seeing the same thing through their eyes. To understand is to compromise and meet in the middle, to say, I can acknowledge and truly see your point of view from your perspective, your culture, your all of those things.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you have to give up part of yourself because you understand. And I say that especially from ladies who are emotional, because we can get emotional sometimes, that if we understand, then we're giving in, and we're compromising everything that we are, and that's not the case. To understand is to acknowledge, and to acknowledge that there's a different point of view or a different way of looking at something. And then when you said V and you said validate, the word that came to my mind was also vulnerability.
Yeah,
If you can
definitely.
play fairly, and if you have ground rules of listening and not attacking one another, be your most vulnerable, because being your vulnerable is being truthful. And being truthful is getting to the heart and the origination of the matter,
Hmm.
of the disagreement or of the opposition of each other.
Yeah.
And if you can mutually respect one another in that vulnerability, at least you'll understand what is stemming from, why the opinion is held so strongly, and why it means so much passionately to one or the other in the relationship. So I love your model. Thank you. Thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, I share that all the time, but it's very powerful, and it kind of, it makes sense. I think, it's just three things. LU, well, four now. We're gonna make it LU double V, double love. Just listen, feeling understood, and validate, and vulnerability. Enolia, you've just added an extra
Yes.
one, so that's fantastic. Oh, good. So tell me, um, what would you say is experiencing love? What would you describe?
So for me, love is a vibration. And when someone is in a loving heart,
Mhm.
all right, I'll take, for example, I meet many cultures, and I remember my sister asking me one time, why would cultures that don't know you from anything invite you in and work with you and teach you and share with you and allow you to stay? And I realized that I have a loving heart. What does that mean? That means that even though I see something that's different from me, a smile comes on my face, a warmth comes in my heart, an openness comes in my heart that says, I see you. And not only do I see you, I celebrate you. And not only do I celebrate you, I am willing to learn from you. And I project that through my smile. How many places have you ever been and you see someone and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go near that person. I don't want them to cook my food. I don't want them to engage me. Oh, that's really, really, that's a person who has issues.
Yeah.
Versus that person who's smiling. When we go to a reception area and that person we're engaging is smiling, how's your day today? Are you? Oh, I hope you have a great day. And you're like, thank you for saying that. You just made my day. That's love shining through as a vibration. That's love basically saying, I welcome you into my field. I'm enjoying what I'm learning from you. I enjoy the engagement of you.
Mhm.
So when you've had a hard day's work and you come home and you're looking at your partner, and your partner is looking like, I had a rough day,
Mm.
versus, hey, I'm so glad to see you're home. Welcome home. Oh, I have so much to tell you. So much happened today. I can't wait to talk to you. Are you ready? Here's the other stuff. Leave the work stuff at work. Or if you're both coming home, oh, honey, we both had a hard day. You know what? Let's celebrate tonight. Let's just do something and leave work outside of it. But
Yeah.
that smile,
Yeah.
my mom always said that when you are at home and someone's there to greet you with an open heart and happiness, home is fun to come home to. And I
Mm.
want both men and women to listen to this. Home is fun to come home to.
Mm. I like that.
Are you engaging in vibration and feeling such that home is fun to come home to? And we're not talking about a physical structure. We're talking about coming home to a relationship, because that's what you're coming home to. Doesn't matter what physical structure you're in, doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter how well you live, little you have. Is home fun to come home to? Is home welcoming because you have such a smile on your inside, not just physical, but inside vibration,
Mm.
that I can't wait to get home. I can't wait to get home because I know I'm loved.
Yeah. Amen. I
So
love
that's where
that.
I would take it.
Yes, absolutely. I like that, Enolia. I really do. I really do. Well, I'm going to give my little version, and I'm going to paint a little metaphor actually of love
Okay.
and the experience of love, and and this is what I experience a lot, particularly living here with my parents. And my dad has a garden, a vegetable patch, and my mum has flowers everywhere. And I relate love, very similar to a gardener and a flower, for example. Why? Because when a flower blooms, right, we as a gardener, or as someone that's watching it, don't necessarily have to be a gardener, you just accept it and feel that joy and that love and that happiness as you watch that flower bloom from day to day. Like, in a period of 3 days, you can watch a flower from its bud to slightly open to the second day, opening up to the third day, like totally blooming. There's no expectation as a gardener. They just feel that love and they feel that joy and they feel that acceptance and that total appreciation. No judgments. Oh, well, you didn't open up the time I wanted you to, or you didn't bloom, or you are the wrong color, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's just pure acceptance, non-judgmental, and feeling that joy and vibrating that joy, because that I've experienced that, particularly with my father's garden, watching the cucumbers grow, for example, or the zucchinis, or the size of the tomatoes, like watching them literally grow and feeling the joy, and then just eating them, which you can relate to that with, you know, if you're in an intimate, loving relationship, you eat each other, right? You just feel so much love that you just want to get into each other, period, right? Um,
Yes, yes.
so
I
that's
think it's so beautiful. I love that. Can you imagine if we had a world where each person cherished and cultivated, planted seeds and nurtured each other to full bloom love?
yeah,
What kind of a world that would be? That's amazing. That would be amazing. No judgments, no attachments,
right,
no materialism, just the pure love of one another and seeing each other wanting to be lifted up.
exactly.
That would be phenomenal. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah,
I absolutely.
because you're right. You don't stomp on a flower as it's blooming, do you? You don't put it down. You don't squash it. You don't chop it off. You just bloom with it. You just bloom with that growth and that development.
And the benefit is the fruit. The benefit is the bloom.
Yes,
The benefit is the abundance of whatever it is because it's been fully nurtured to its potential.
exactly, exactly.
Wow. Make that akin to love.
Taking it a little step further, look, eat each other. I mean, you've encouraged that, that fruit or that vegetable to grow, and then you're just going to enjoy it, aren't you? You're going to enjoy its flavor, its deliciousness, its juiciness. I mean, we can take it like really go far away with this, but yeah, that's
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I also want to comment that love is power.
Mm,
Love is power because any ill-gotten attitude has been conquered with love. Any ill-gotten situation has been conquered with a loving action.
mm,
It really is a powerful state of being.
yes.
Really, really powerful state of being. It is a powerful energy. And I remember this one story, and it was a long, 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 long time ago, that this woman had adopted a young man who was probably 13 at the time. And I'm not going to digress into the story fully, but the, the young man had anger problems. And how she ended up getting this young man over his anger problems by the time he was 20 years old. Think of this, from like 13, 14 years old to 20 years old, she forced a hug on him every day. He would fight her tooth and nail. Every day, she would hold him for 5 minutes and hug him and tell him how much she loved him, no matter how angry. And sometimes she would get literally beat up for it, physically beat up for it. He was really that angry. His spirit was really that broken. And I remember listening to this documentary of how he, at 20 years old, was testifying his behavior, and that he had grown up to be this wonderful, cultivated, successful young man, because his mother never gave up on him. Even though he was adopted, even though he fought her, even though he physically hurt her, she never gave up on him. And that those hugs cultivated the man that he was today. And he thanked her. And I remember crying when I heard the story.
Wow.
Because that's the power of love.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. And when someone possesses it that deeply and that beautifully, embracing and saying, I'm going to love you. I'm going to choose to love you. And this isn't love at a detriment of, okay, let everyone use you as a doormat. This was a mother and a child. And I want to caveat that. This was a mother and a child, and a mother showing this child love when a child had been broken and had never had love before. He didn't know how to interpret love. He didn't understand what love was. And until he was that old, he finally got it.
Wow.
Switch turned on and the shift took place. It was a beautiful, beautiful scenario.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that, Enolia. Thank you. And just quickly to finish off, so we won't, because we can talk for hours about this.
I know we can go on.
But I just wanted to go back to what you shared about the smile. You know, love doesn't have to mean, you don't have to be saying, I love you constantly to express that love or to feel loved. You don't have to hear it, you know. And I know for those that have, you know, their love language is, you know, appreciation and feeling praised and feeling the gift of appreciation. It's not what it's all about on its own. You know, hearing those words, it's could be through a smile, it could be through dancing eyes, you know, just the eyes light up, or the presence, or just vibrating that energy. Because when you're vibrating that energy, you don't have to say anything, just that person will feel that love that you are emanating, I think. And that's what I just wanted to really bring it back to, because yeah, the smile, I know what one of my strongest points is, my smile. And when I do smile, you know, like I kind of look a bit Chinesey and you can't see my eyes or anything, but people know when I'm not happy, because you know my face is that smile on me. So yeah, I think know what is your strength in emanating that love. And it doesn't have to be through a smile, it can just be your presence. And you know, I've known of people, particularly men, that just their energy, they emanate this strength of love without being over the top or an extrovert. You know, it's not about being an extrovert at all. It, you know, finding out what your gift is and using that to emanate your love is a great way of expressing love, I think.
Yes. And I have to second you. I think that one of my biggest strengths is my smile.
Yeah,
too. And people know when I'm smiling, it's just like, oh, is everything okay? And it's just like, oh no, I'm fine, I'm smiling. But sometimes we to tap into that beauty and that love, that smile does need to come.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to eat.
No.
Yeah. A smile speaks 1,000 words without ever saying one.
Exactly.
And I'll leave it at that.
Yes, good. Well, thank you, Enolia. That was great. Thank you for sharing your views on love, and I'm glad I got to share mine. But for those people that don't know who we are, we didn't really introduce ourselves in the beginning, but I'm sure if you've stayed right to the end, you'll now know how to contact Enolia, and then I'll say my bit. So how can they reach you, Enolia? All these lovely ladies that...
Yes, I can be reached on www.enolia, that's ENOLIA.live. I can be reached on Enolia under YouTube, Enolia Empowers on, I believe that's LinkedIn, and also on Instagram and on Facebook. You'll see Enolia, just my name, Enolia, or under @Love's Infinite Possibility. Love's Infinite Possibility. So, and we do coaching and energy work and house blessings and a little bit of everything under the sun, and especially life coaching. So I welcome you to come and connect and contact me. I'm there. And Stefania, what about you? Your
Thank you.
contact information?
Okay, so you can reach me at thegentleman'square.com, and I have my website, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn as well. So for those of you that don't know me, have just tapped in, I am a men's love and relationship coach. So I help all you lovely men out there to attract a value matched woman, understand how she thinks and her energy and female energy and her psychology, and not only that, keep her. I help you and keep her in a sexy, passionate, loving relationship without going crazy. And that's done through different modalities: coaching, hypnotherapy, and mainly coaching, but all sorts. I'm available for chatting. You can talk to me. It doesn't have to be a session. My programs, you can check out my programs on my website as well. So thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for joining us, Enolia and myself, Stefania Puleo. And we will be doing these episodes weekly because they're starting to become, people are really becoming interested. And of course, if anyone has a question or would like us to talk about a certain topic, please feel free to DM us or write a message in the chat or however we want to contact us. And we'd be only too happy to answer your questions. Wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
Enolia?
And the last thing I would like to say is enjoy love, especially this week.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And make every day a Valentine's Day with your loved ones.
Yes.
So
Take the time to tell somebody how much you love them. So
yes.
thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you next time.
Thanks, Enolia.
Thank you, Stefania.